Hello, very big news broke this afternoon. Um, Definitely worth doing a video about, I think. From Science Direct website, I'll put the link in the description down below. I read this. SARS-CoV-2 was already spreading in France in late December 2019. So I'm going to read out the full article there. Got the highlights first. COVID-19 was already spreading in France in late December 2019, a month before the official first cases in the country. Early community spreading changes our knowledge of COVID-19 epidemic. This new case changes our understanding of the epidemic, and modelling studies should adjust to this new data. Then under abstract, the COVID-19 epidemic is believed to have started in late January 2020 in France. We report here a case of a patient hospitalised in December 2019 in our intensive care of our hospital in the north of Paris for hepatitis with no etiological diagnosis, and for which RT-PCR was performed retrospectively on the stored respiratory sample, which confirmed the diagnosis. In other words, this sample tested positive for COVID-19 infection. Based on this result, it appears that the COVID-19 epidemic started much earlier. Okay, at the end of the introduction section, after its onset in December 2019 in China, the new coronavirus, known as SARS-CoV-2, spreads widely in several countries, causing COVID-19 illness. World Health Organization, WHO, declared COVID-19 a pandemic on March the 11th, 2020. France reported the first cases of SARS-CoV-2 related infection on January 24th, 2020. Both cases had a history of travel to Wuhan. To the best of our knowledge, these two cases are believed to be the first confirmed cases in France. COVID-19 most commonly present with influenza-like illness, while China was facing COVID-19 outbreak. This is an important sentence here. While China was facing COVID-19 outbreak, European countries were struggling with seasonal influenza, the seasonal flu. So for people in the UK, you cast your mind back to November and December 2019. There were a lot of people getting very ill with flu-like symptoms. Have a drink. Clinical symptomology between COVID-19 and ILIs for influenza-like illness, similar. We therefore decided retrospectively to look for SARS-CoV-2 in respiratory samples collected in the intensive care units, ICUs, of our hospital near Paris. We reviewed medical record of ICU's patients admitted for ILI between December 2nd, 2019 and January 16th, 2020, with a negative RT-PCR performed at admission. Every respiratory sample collected in our hospital are frozen at minus 80 degrees Celsius in thermoscientific minus 86 degrees Celsius freezer and stored for 4 years in case of a need for further analysis. Samples taken from patients with both ILI symptoms, fever higher than 38.5 degrees Celsius, cough, rhinitis, sore throat, or how do you pronounce that? M for short, and ground class opacity according to their medical record underwent SARS-CoV-2 RT-PCR. A description of sample selection is available in Figure 1. So there it is right there, and again I've got the link in the description down below, so you've got the option to download high-res images of these diagrams, by the way. Full-size images available. Figure 1 shows the selection process for testing. Oh no, I coughed. Testing for COVID-19. SARS-CoV-2 RT-PCR was performed on 14 selected biobanks between April 6th and 9th, 2020. RT-PCR was performed strictly according to the Starite protocol, targeting the E gene coding for envelope protein pansgenomic of SARS-CoV-1 and SARS-CoV-2 on a QuantStudio 7 Thermo Fisher device. Positive result shown in Figure 2 was confirmed with the Gene Finder COVID-19 Plus Real-Amp Kit, IFMR45, according to the manufacturer's recommendations. This test targets 3 viral genes, RD, RP, E and N coding respectively, for the viral RNA-dependent RNA polymerase envelope and nucleocapsid protein and the cellular RNA SEP gene in order to confirm the quality of the respiratory sample. So that shows the amplification plot. Again, download link for high-res image, full-size image. Figure 2 shows the result of Starite protocol RT-PCR assay. The patient's curve is in yellow and positive and negative test samples in purple. Lines on the graph. Results. During the study period, 24% of the patients out of 58 admitted for ILI were included in our analysis, Table 1. One sample was positive, taken from a 42-year-old man born in Algeria who lived in France for many years and worked as a fishmonger. His last trip was in Algeria during August 2019. One of his... need a drink. One of his child presented with ILI prior to the onset of his symptoms. His medical history consisted in asthma, type 2 diabetes, mellitus. He presented to the emergency ward on December 27th, 2019 with hematitis, cough, headache and fever, evolving for 4 days. Initial examination was unremarkable and the performed CT scan revealed bilateral ground glass opacity in inferior lobes, shown in Figure 3. At admission he had lymphopenia, an elevated C-reactive protein and fibrogen, while procalcitonin was in normal range value. No pathogen was identified on sputum sample collected in the emergency ward. The patient was admitted to the ICU with antibiotic therapy and evolution was favourable until discharge on December 29th, 2019. So that patient in question's made a full recovery. Figure 3 shows chest computed tomography performed at baseline. Again, high-res images available. Then we get to this very interesting discussion here. We report an observation of a patient infected with COVID-19 1 month before the first reported cases in our country. That country would be France. On admission, the patient presented clinical signs and radiological patterns frequently seen previously in the Chinese and Italian cohorts. Identifying the first infected patient is of great epidemiological interest. This is known as patient 0, isn't it? The first infected patient. As it changes dramatically our knowledge regarding SARS-CoV-2 and its spreading in the country. Moreover, the absence of a link with China and the lack of recent travel suggests that the disease was already spreading among the French population at the end of December 2019. I want to go over that again as I finish my drink because it's getting cold. We are not talking, this patient here who tested positive in France did not come back from a visit from Wuhan or anything like that. So I'll go over a really important part of the discussion here, so I'm going to say it again. Moreover, the absence of a link with China and the lack of recent travel suggests that the disease was already spreading among the French population at the end of December 2019. Further studies are required to evaluate SARS-CoV-2's actual onset on French territory. the actual extent of SARS-CoV-2 contamination in the population during late 2019 and January 2020, and explore the potential unnoticed deaths that could have happened at the time. COVID-19 is considered to be responsible for 86334 cases and 12210 deaths as of April 10th, 2020 in France. Figure's probably gone up by now. But our findings suggest that these numbers could be underestimating the actual burden of COVID-19. Two recent studies suggested that around 18 to 23% infected with SARS-CoV-2 were asymptomatic, and that around 55% of infected were caused by unidentified infected persons. The asymptomatic, of course, means people infected but never show any symptoms. Our results strongly support these two assumptions, suggesting that many asymptomatic patients were not diagnosed during January 2020 and contributed to the spread of this epidemic. Furthermore, since these results change our understanding of the dynamic of the epidemic, it also means that several models used to predict the evolution and outcomes of the SARS-CoV-2 propagation might be based on biased data and would need to be adjusted to the actual profile of the epidemic. Our study presents several limitations, firstly due to the retrospective nature of the analyses carried out. Medical records were not exhaustive, and some relevant information might have been missing. Secondly, we are not able to rule out false negative results due to the sensitivity of RT-PCR and a technique of storage that possibly damaged the quality of the samples. But to avoid any false positive result, we have taken all the usual precautions, and we also confirmed it by two different techniques and staff. Thirdly, we restricted our analyses to only a few samples, and we chose to limit the selected records to ICU patients with compatible symptoms and CT, even though most patients actually had mild symptoms. Fourthly, we restricted our analyses to patients with a negative multiplex PCR at the time, even though cross-contamination has been described in literature. Finally, we conducted a monocentric study in the northern Paris area, which faced a particularly high burden in this epidemic. These limitations could explain why we were only able to identify one person infected with SARS-CoV-2 in our population. And then you've got the usual stuff down the bottom, references, etc., etc. And that's the end of the article. So, from the International Journal of Antimicrobial Agents. Listed up just underneath the headline. All their names there. Presumably, that's the names of the people behind this article here. So, 13 minutes on the clock. I wanted to read that out. I think that's real big news with real big implications. I'll put the link to the article down below. Go read it, share it, download the PDF, get the high-res images of the diagrams and everything. And thanks for watching, and see you next time.